Hello everyone, my name is Umar. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys are doing absolutely fine. In today's video, we're going to talk about network address translation in an F5 appliance. So before we start, let me walk you through the topology which we have set up for today's video. So we have an F5 device over here, big IP F5. This is having three interfaces. So one is the management interface, which is 10.100.222.0/24 network. You have 192.168.1.0/24. So this is my server zone. Okay, and this is, let's say, my public facing zone or my internet zone. So this is my client, which will be taking access to all these servers. So server 1, server 2, and server 3. So server 1, server 2, server 3 have an IP address of .201, .202, and .203. This client is operating on a network address of 68.110.10.x. Okay, so what we are going to implement today? So we are going to implement NAT. This will be our first task, and we are going to implement SNAT by two methods. So we are going to do Automap, and we are going to do a pool. Okay, so first let's talk about NAT. Now NAT is a one-to-one mapping. So in NAT, we are going to do one-to-one mapping of one server to one public IP address. So let's say this particular server 192.168.1.201 server 1 will be mapped onto a public IP address of, let's say, 68.110.10.221. So this is the mapping which I want to create. So this is 192.168.1.201. So when you do NAT, you don't require any virtual servers to be set up on the big IP F5 appliance. It's just one-to-one straight mapping. So let's do that first. Let's check whether the traffic is working as expected or no, and then move on to SNAT. Okay, so let me take you to the F5 device. Here I have my big IP F5. And let me take you to address translation. Okay, so I have added all the nodes in my F5 appliance. So I have my nodes which have been added. Server 1, 192.168.1.201. You don't require any pools or virtual servers, so I won't be showing you how they have been set up, and because we don't really need them. So let me take you to address translation first. Let me take you to NAT list. Now in NAT list, we don't have any NAT list created so far, so let's create one. Okay, let's name this as my NAT. Okay, NAT address. Now NAT address is the public IP address. So 10 dot, what we have chosen over here, 221. The origin address is the server's address, the 192.168.1.201 over there. And let's say finish. Once this has been created, let's go down and check the connectivity. So let me take you to this particular router, which is acting as my client. Enable, and I'll try to just ping 68.110.10.221. Am I right there? Yes, 221. Enter, and I have the connection as successful. I'll just try to telnet as well. So telnet 68.110.10.221, and yes, Cisco, and we are in server 1. Let's check from where the connection is coming. So to check that, let's type who, and it will show up that one of my public IP addresses is trying to access. So that will be somewhere from the 68 network. And now you see the user over here is showing as Cisco. It takes a bit of time to come up. Yes, sir. So I see the user is Cisco, the username and the password which we have entered, and the address 68.110.10.200, which is my client's IP address. I'll just exit and I'll show you the client IP as well. Okay, so let's say show IP interface brief. Okay, so 68.110.10.200. Now let's talk about SNAT. Now why do we need SNAT first of all? Okay, now in a normal scenario, what would happen? So let me just clear out all these things. So first we try to understand why do we need SNAT, and then we'll go and implement SNAT over there. So let me just clear out everything which I have drawn so far. That just gives us a clean slate again. Okay, perfect. Now let's say in a normal scenario what would happen. So I have my F5 over here. Okay, that's not what I wanted. Okay, let me just expand this a bit. Okay, what has gone wrong? Okay, yeah, here we go. So, well, now whenever this client initiates a connection, okay, to my F5 device, so I have a pool configured on my big IP F5, okay, a pool which is consisting of these three nodes. So my servers are acting as nodes, and I have a virtual IP address. So F5 being a full proxy network, so I have this as connection 1 and the connection from the F5 to any of my servers, whoever is available. So we are not talking about any different kind of load balancing. Let's stick to round robin. So between F5 and the servers, you have a different connection coming up. So whenever this client is accessing, so for the client who is the server is the F5 device. So let's say I have chosen a virtual server IP address as 68.110.10. Let's say 99. Okay. So whenever this client accesses this particular IP address, the connection is sent to one of the servers over there. And on the servers, when I check from where am I getting the connection, it will show me that our connection is coming from 68.110.10.200. So first we will verify that, and then we'll talk about a scenario wherein you require source address to be translated. That is your source NAT. So first, let me go to the F5 device, disable the NAT which we have implemented. So let's say I'll just delete this. Okay, so this has been deleted. Let me go and check my pools, whether they are ready. Yes, my telnet pool is ready. My virtual server is 68.110.10.99, and this pool, okay, so this is the server, and this pool is mapped to the server. So the resources have the default pool as my telnet pool. Now I'll go to my client once again, and from there I will try to initiate a connection to, let's say, 68.110.10.99. This is the virtual server's IP address. Okay, so Cisco, so server 3, and it will load balance. So I'll just exit, wait for a moment, and I'll again initiate a telnet connection. Cisco again, and server 1. So it is load balancing. And over here, let's go and check from where are we getting the traffic. Who is trying to connect? So here it will show me what is the IP address which is trying to connect to me right now. Okay, so it will just come up. It takes a bit of a time over here. Let's wait. Okay, so the user is coming up as Cisco, which is our user, which we have used over here. And the source, the location, check the location. The location is 68.110.10.200. That is, this client is accessing the server. So the server sees that the connection is coming from 68.110.10.200. Now, let's talk about the flow of the packet. So what happens is, this connection comes in from 3725 to the big IP. It goes to the server 1. Now in server 1, I need to have a default route pointing towards F5 for the reply traffic. Because obviously the connected network over here is 192.168.1.0. The connection is coming from 68 network. my server does not know where is my 68 network, so it has to have a default route pointing towards the F5 device. Now there are two scenarios. First, so let's talk about SNAT. So first I want to hide my client IP. So this is my client. Okay, so hide my client IP. And the second scenario and the second requirement is I have asymmetric routing. Now when I have asymmetric routing, that means what? That means I have a default route but which is not pointing to the F5 device. Rather, there might be some another gateway over here, and the default route is instead pointed to the gateway. So I have a default route which is looking something like this. Now what will happen? If this connection is coming from 68.110.10.200, the server says that I don't know where is 68 network, and it will try to go to the gateway. So obviously the connection which is coming from the server side will be exiting from the gateway, and this is not what we want. From here we will never be able to reach the client. So in that case, what we want is we want the F5 device, this particular device over here, to do a source NAT. Okay, so basically translate the source address to one of the addresses which you want. Now I just said because I said which you want because you have options over there. You have an option of Automap. Okay, and the second option which you have is a pool list. What happens in Automap? In Automap, it will use this interface IP address. In pool, it will use the user defined IP address. And both these IP addresses, whether it be Automap or user defined, they will belong to this particular pool over here, 192.168.1.0. So when I see who is trying to access the server, it will show me an IP address from 192.168.1.x. So over here, the IP address which I have used is .50, and for the pool I can use a user defined IP address, so whichever I want to use over there. So why do we use NAT? We have to hide the client IP address and if there is asymmetric routing existing in my network. So let's go and implement SNAT, first by using Automap, then second by using a pool IP address. Okay, so let me go back, and now where do we implement SNAT? We go to virtual servers. So before we implement SNAT, let's check the default behavior. Okay, so we have already checked the default behavior, right? We have checked it that we are getting a connection from 68.110.10.200. Now let me go to the telnet server. Okay, and over here I have an option of source address translation. So for now it is none. I will just put it to Automap, and I'll update this. And I will show you what address I have on my interface as well. So I'll just take you to network. Okay, this has been updated. Yes, this has been updated. Let's go to network and let's go to self IP addresses. So I have VLAN internal 192.168.1.50. So VLAN internal is my interface E1.2, the one which I have mapped over here. So this is the address 1.50. Okay, so I have done Automap. Now I haven't used any floating IP addresses. The first priority is to use a floating IP address. The second priority is to use the local IP address. So we don't have a floating IP address, so we'll be using a local IP address there. Now once Automap has been implemented on the server, let's do a last check over there so that you guys know what we have done. Okay, so here you see source address translation, and we have done Automap. Now let's go and initiate a connection once again. Okay, so telnet 68.110.10.99. We are going to access the address which has been advertised to us, the virtual IP address. The connection shows open again, and let's say Cisco and the password. We are at server 2. See, it is load balancing as well, and let's try to enable and check who is coming from where. Okay, so now what do we expect to see? We expect to see the Automap IP address as the initiator of this connection. So we are hiding the client IP address. So it shows up we have one user Cisco, and let us see the IP address which is coming up there. It will take a moment and then it will show up. Okay, yes. You see 192.168.1.99, which is this address. I think we had a floating IP address. Self IPs. Okay, yes, we had a floating IP address. I just forgot about that. So that is what is just showing up. So if I just delete this floating IP address, I will be seeing my 192.168.1.50 coming up. Okay, so well, that is one thing which we wanted to check. So I'll just delete that so they can understand the priority as well. I'll just delete this address. Yes, delete. Okay, so now I have 192.168.1.50 as my internal IP address, which is local only address. Okay, so let's go back and verify that once again. So again, telnet 268.110.10.99. Sorry. Okay, my bad. Okay, enable, and let's check who is coming up. So now I will see 192.168.1.50 as my location which is trying to take access. So I am not seeing 68.110.10.200. So my client identity is hidden. Now what I will do is, just to prove the asymmetric routing part, I'll just go and show you the server configuration and I'll remove the static default route which they are having. So let's say enable, let's go show IP route. Now let's say I have a default route connected towards my F5 appliance. So I'll just go and remove this default route. So let's say no IP route 0000000.192.168.1.50. Okay, and I'll just copy this and I'll apply it to all my servers. This is server 2. Just bear with me. It's a small configuration which we have to do so that we verify things. Okay, and the third router. Okay, so I have removed the default route. I don't need a default route because now the IP which they are seeing belongs to their own local network which they are connected to. So if I do again a telnet session, so again of course I'll just exit. Okay, and I'll repeat my session. So Cisco. So you see the connection is going through. Okay, it's the wrong username password. Okay, another password there, and let me check who is coming up. So you see, I don't need a default route. Now wherever the default route be, it doesn't really matter because what they are seeing is the IP address coming in from their own network which they are connected to. So all these servers now see an IP address of .50, which is a part of this 192.168.1.0/24. So this is one thing which we have done. Let me clear this out again. I'll just show you the pool option there. So we'll just define a pool and delete. Okay. So now the next thing which we have to do is we have to create a NAT pool. So what we will do, not NAT pool, a SNAT pool. So I'll choose one IP address. So let's say from this network, I'll just pick up one IP address 192.168.1.155. So now whenever my connections are coming, they will be translated to this address, and this address will be acting as this, sending the connections out to the servers. Again, I don't need a default route, because that is what the problem of that is the problem which SNAT is solving for us. Okay, so let's go and do that. So I'll go back to my F5. I'll go to local traffic. From there, I'll go to address translation, a SNAT pool list. I have a SNAT test created over here, and I've added 192.168.1.95. Let's delete that and add 192.168.1.155. Add, update. Okay, then for the virtual servers, go to the telnet server. In the address translation part of it, here I'll be choosing that I want SNAT, and the pool I have to use is the SNAT test, and I'll update this. Okay, so once this is updated, let's go and establish sessions once again from my client. Okay, so again the same process, telnet. So we are at server 3, enable, enter the password, and let's type who is trying to connect. So again, this will take a moment to come up, and here what do we expect to see? Here we expect to see the location as 192.168.1.155, and that is exactly what it is showing up over here. Okay, see here we have hidden the client identity, plus we do not need any default route back to the F5. So the default route could be anywhere. It could be to a gateway from where these servers are trying to access the internet or something like that. Okay, so this is what we wanted to do in this video. So we have successfully implemented NAT. So let's summarize what all we have done. So we have done NAT, wherein we did a one-to-one translation from a public IP to a private IP address. Second, we did source NAT, in which we implemented it via Automap, and we implemented it via a pool. And why do we use source NAT? The first is we want to hide the client's IP. So the client is the 3725 over here. So this is the client. So hide client IP address. Second, asymmetric routing. So here, to prove that asymmetric routing, we just remove the default route on our servers. So if I am doing NAT, obviously I need to have a default route pointing back towards the F5 device, or else the connection won't happen. Even if I'm not using any kind of NAT, I need to have a default route pointing towards the F5 device, because if there is no translation, the actual client IP is shown to the server there. The server, for it to connect back to that client, the reverse flow, we need a default route pointing towards F5. So this is what the agenda was, and we have successfully implemented and verified NAT and SNAT on F5 appliances. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope this has been informative. You can comment your thoughts down below. You can subscribe to our channel for more videos on networking coming up every Friday and Monday. Thank you for watching, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.